speaking to my friend Senator Kennedy, this question of border security is one that I'm very concerned about, and I know you are, obviously. But it's an astonishing situation where you have these children who are fleeing these incredible circumstances that motivates them to take this journey all the way up to this country. And not an easy, there's a lot of tragedy here, a lot of human tragedy, not caused, I don't think, by anybody here. I'm just going to ask Ms. Marcos, can you just describe the situations for some of these kids, where they come from, what their situation is, what's motivated them to go through the Darien Gap and walk thousands of miles, or come from El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, where a lot of these kids are coming from? Just tell us what your experience is with describing these kids and what their circumstances are.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I myself have not worked in the region, but I spent many years of my career working in and around refugee camps and with populations like the unaccompanied children who are fleeing a number of things: gang violence, extreme poverty, persecution. And we know that these are desperate situations. And what our team of professionals wants to make sure that we are doing is that when they are referred to our care by DHS or another federal entity, that they are safely taken care of, that they are in an environment that we can do full assessments. If they have a risk of trafficking, if they have been trafficked, then we make referrals to the appropriate law enforcement agencies.
And what's the process of for these kids if they're going to be sent back to their country of origin?
Senator, respectfully, I'm not probably the best person to speak to this, but certainly people fleeing horrific situations, sending them back is putting their life at risk.
Mr. Salazar, I mean, you've been, I appreciate a lot of what Senator Kennedy was asking you actually is something I think Congress has to do as opposed to you can unilaterally do. But can you describe what the situation is for some of these kids that show up and what has to happen?
Sir, I actually don't know what the process is to return these individuals back to their home countries.
Yeah. Ms. Nanda, there's an immense amount, a big increase in child labor. And kids who are coming are very vulnerable to being exploited to work. Sometimes it's even sex trafficking. Do you have any observations or any suggestions on what to do to reduce child exploitation, both child labor and sex exploitation as well?
Thanks so much for that question, Senator Welch. So first, I will mention that with regards to the Department of Labor, and we are charged with enforcing our child labor laws. We have a supplemental request for $100 million, which would be $50 million for the Wage and Hour Division, which does the investigations, $50 million for my office, the solicitor's office, that does all of the legal work related to the investigation, as well as that enforcement work. Wage Hour has seen a 12% decrease in their staffing over the last several years. Over the last 10 years, the solicitor's office has lost about 100 attorneys, or about 17% of our staff, with essentially flat funding. So the first thing I would say is certainly funding would help. These investigations are incredibly resource intensive in terms of human trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking. All of our investigators are trained to identify human trafficking. We also have mandatory reporting within 24 hours. We are routinely training our folks. We are making sure that we are aligned as a task force and working to get as much information out to our interagency partners on that work as well.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Welch. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for